If you want to, yeah, we'll do the. I think we should wait a couple minutes just for people to come in, but we'll just chit chat before the expert gets going.
That's the building that you're sitting in. We are so proud to be able to host this master class tonight because it's something that's really vital for the people of Rockport and Fulton at Aransas County. The Women's Club, our total purpose is to raise money for scholarships for the young ladies of Aransas County. This year, we were able to award $3,000 in extended scholarships from last year and another $7,000 new scholarships for a total of $10,000 this year. And it's all done, but we raise money playing cards and mahjong and renting this building. So this is our 75th anniversary year. And we have a lot of things going on, but the next most important thing that we're doing, on the desk up front, there's a sign about the longest day. The longest day is June 21st, and across the nation, duplicate bridge clubs and other clubs work with the Alzheimer's Association to raise money to try and end that horrible disease. So if you might see some of my little things around town in the different shops that where, if you have spare change, you can just throw it in. And it's a community effort. I'm a big community person. So if everybody works together, maybe we'll be able to beat this thing. And there are some brochures on the desk about the Women's Club. If anybody has any questions about it, feel free to come and talk to me, because we're a fun group doing fun things. And thank you very much for coming.
My name is Kathy Kane. I have the distinction of just being kind of the voice behind the scenes for the Aransas County Voters Coalition. This group started as a not-for-profit official special interest PAC that started when we were looking at bonds for the City Hall and the courthouse and other bonds that came up. So our intent behind is just to make sure that we're giving you good information. We don't charge. If you want to give us a small donation to help pay, college gives us a very good discount to rent this building because of our purposes of our group is to be informative. And so we really just want to let people know that we're here to give you a voice and be sure that we're sharing information that it benefits all of us. Because if one of us protests, all of us protest, it's all for the good. So I'm going to turn it over to Jeff and others, but asking if you haven't yet or you see stragglers come in, remind them to sign up. And the reason we're asking for you to sign up is so that we can collect your information and email you the packet. So take notes, but there's a lot of information Jeff is going to share, and we do need to, it'll be helpful for you if we can email the packet.
Okay, I did forget to mention one thing, and that is the Voter Coalition was so generous and donated our microphones.
I did. Yeah.
Oh, Kathy Payne donated our wireless microphones. We were able to get 2 mics, and this is just absolutely wonderful. Thank you, darling. And I really want to do a benediction.
Okay, perfect.
Ruben?
Yes, thank you. I don't like that. That's my third Okay. Okay.
Good evening. Thank you for coming, and it's my honor, my pleasure to bless this meeting tonight. My name is Ruben Garcia again, and let's bow our heads in prayer. Thank you, Lord. We bless your holy name, and we thank you for the opportunity to come before you in this place. Lord, we know that there is unrest in the nation, unrest in the country, and unrest in the little cities even. And Lord, we ask your blessing upon this meeting. And Lord, we ask you to bless and keep you. The Lord make his face to shine on you and be gracious to you. And the Lord turn toward you and give you peace. In Jesus' name, amen.
My name is Jeff Hutt. In 2020, I ran for the county tax assessor collector, and I made a lot of promises about helping people out with their appraisals. I did not lose, but my wife said that was no excuse. So here we are today, and I've been trying to help people out. I think this is a big, important issue for us as a community. But what we are experiencing here today is what people across the state are experiencing. High appraisals is hurting us all. I know a lot of times we want to wonder about who is to blame for our high taxes. I want to make this clear. It is your local entities who set the rate. The appraisals are set by something that's called your appraisal district. And these are acronyms you're going to hear. You're going to hear the acronym CAD a lot tonight. And that is called the County Appraisal District. Ours here is called ACAD, Aransas County Appraisal District. This is the organization that the board members who make up, we have 5 board members, and they're appointed from the local taxing entities. They're the ones who hire the chief appraiser. The chief appraiser is the one who goes out once a year and does your reappraisal on your homes. And they are the ones who are also responsible for not choosing another acronym we're going to talk a lot before, Appraisal Review Board, ARB. But they're not the ones responsible for choosing the ARB. That is your district court judges. But they are responsible for making sure that the ARB, Appraisal Review Board, hearing judges are paid and they're trained. Now, we count yourselves lucky to be in Rockport, live in Aransas County today. The Judge Ray Garza, wanted to be here tonight, but he's sick. He has on the front door of the courthouse a flyer for this event. No county judge that I know is going to put a flyer on their door to try to help people pay less taxes. The county is hard up for money right now, and he's willing to make our lives better at the expense of making his budgeting process. We are also lucky enough here today that we have our appraisal board director here today. She was new. Our county judge was appointed in January. She took office in January 1st too. And already in her first meetings, she's moved to make the appraisal process more responsible and more open. And that in the back is Michaela Austin. She is also the vice president of school district. No county that you're going to go to, you're going to find the school board vice president, who is the chair of the CAD, the County Appraisal District, I want to say Cultural Arts District, County Appraisal District, who is supporting this, nor will you have a judge, county judge, who is supporting this type of movement anyway. Also, I'd like to also point out we have other politicians who are here, elected officials who are with us in the struggle to make property appraisals more fair. In the back, we have Stephanie Rangel, who is the Ward 1, City of Rockport, and she's going to get up at some point and tell us about her experience. She is a champion in the protest process. And we have Mr. Long Nguyen over here, who is the Navigation District Commissioner. So, we are poised in Aransas County to make this a fair and equitable process. And we also have, we have Jack Vogel, who is on the school board. He's here too. Sorry, I didn't see up here. So, you have elected leaders who are dedicated to making this process better for us, but we're going to have to give them time. Like I said, our chairman of the CAD just came into office in January. Our judge just came into office in January. This year, we're on our own to make this better. The only way we can make this process better is if we all protest together. You have to protest, you have to knock on your neighbor's door, and you have to tell them to protest. Why do I say this? If you protest this year and you're successful, and your neighbor doesn't protest this year, and their appraisals automatically go up, next year your values are going to be compared to your neighbors. This is truly a struggle for us all. There's no division between red, blue, green, and yellow. We're just all Texans trying to fight and be able to stay in our homes. I am no expert on the situation. The way I learn is I started to help people like you guys, and you guys who are much smarter than me. I mean, I went to Rockport, I educated Rockport Elementary. Nothing about Rockport Elementary, but I was bad even there. So I struggle, but you guys have taught me what I've known. So I appreciate you guys showing up. We have a couple of people here today. We have Michael. What's your last name, sir? Again? Berlanga, who is here. He is. He's the expert here. We also have Andrew Kane, who is. We're lucky enough to live in Rockport, but he's one of the most knowledgeable people in the state when it comes to commercial property protest. So he's just here because he's gonna help us and give you advice. So if you have any of those questions, direct it to one of these two people. And I'd like to say this: we did this on Saturday. A lot of us are frustrated. A lot of us have stories that we want to tell, that we need to come together and we need to express to our elected officials, and we need to express to ourselves. Our appraisal went up 100%. My property went up from 100,000 to 170,000 for no reason, so I'm upset. But during this part of this session, let's try to keep let's try to maintain calm. Let's stay focused. We're here to gain information so we can protest, so we can learn how to better protest. If we have stories that we want to tell afterwards, let's wait afterwards, and we can all hang out, and we can all reminisce and like be angry together. Because be honest, I think this is a legitimate feeling that we are all experiencing. We feel like we have no control over the process, but today is about getting control. So what I'm going to do is Michael and Andrew first. Stephanie, can you come up and tell us about your story? And Stephanie's a great success story. She had never, first of all, she's super smart. Number two, she had never protested her taxes before last year. Last year, with a little bit of coaching, she took it away, and I mean, she's a rock star, and she was able to get her appraisal value down, and we're going to kind of let her tell her story, what she did. The way she did it is the techniques you are going to learn tonight. Thank you.
So he's actually incorrect. I protested it once before. But I'll tell you about that. So I kind of just jotted things down to keep it clear and concise for y'all. So in 2022, my home came in assessed at $318 and some change, right? I protested it and I got it agreed to $200 flat. So huge, significant decrease. It can be done, guys. Okay. A little backstory. I was a new homeowner in 2017. I bought my first home 3 weeks before Harvey hit. I had a lot of adulting to learn. And, the following year, my home didn't increase very much. However, in 2019, it went from 153 and some change to 325 and a half. So 112% increase. At that time was my first protest, Joe. So I went and did an informal over the phone. They told me a lot of things. Property hadn't been correctly assessed in years. This is fair. So I agreed at 275. I thought I had won something. So then the following year, we go in, and my home comes back at 318, I believe. So 275 to 318 and some change. Over a 4-year period, I saw an average of 107% increase. So that's was settling down that 1 year, and then it popped right back up. So I knew at that time I needed to do a formal protest. I'm going to go in front of this panel, and I'm going to fight it, right? So I started educating myself. What do I need to look at? How do I pull all the pieces apart? So I'm going to give you a little bit of information on how I kind of started my own investigation. It's important to review current as well as past year descriptions and classifications of your property. There's a tab, it's a drop down, it brings you year by year by year. Go back. If it's when you purchased your house in the last 5 years, or I went year by year and looked at the difference of classification details of my property until I found the inconsistencies. Those I use as evidence. So a few inconsistencies I found. My class code. My house, based on the description of my current standing for that year, should have been a 3DS. It's numbered 1 through 6, 6 being your top pristine homes, okay? 1 being not so nice. And then you go into a letter, right? So VS is I have vinyl siding, or it could be a brick, okay? So my home should have been a 3 VS based on the current year. I compared current data to the past, and I found that in 2019, they actually changed my class code from a 3 VS to a 4 VS. I had no improvements. Mind you, this is also post-Harvey, okay? So, and I did not get to improve the exterior of my home. I had a mess of a situation. It's contractor fraud. Like, they took $34,000 and ran. So yeah, I got my roof done though. That one I did. Priorities, right? So also additional structures were coded incorrectly, such as storage shed, garage, my covered and uncovered porches, based on current year condition. Okay, current year condition. They also had my living area listed incorrectly. In 2016, when I went back, it was listed at 2618. When I protested in 2022, the living area was listed at 3420. I had no additions. Okay? They had included non-livable spaces that were uninhabitable, such as my garage and storage shed. I used my last survey, or you can use the survey that's included in the evidence packet provided as evidence. You can look at the year built on the improvement data to show no listed additions have been added as well. Okay, so there's a year built, and it tells you. So if you have, like for my instance, the shed, they were listing it as livable. I showed evidence, pictures, this is not a livable space, and the year in which it was built. Okay. Also, sales comps. Based on the evidence photos and provided facts of the property, they have to provide actual comparable comps, okay? They had given me incomparable comps. And what I did to show that was I took my evidence, 3 VS, livable square feet, okay? I used that as my evidence against their comparable comps. I found inconsistencies with the classification code as well as living area comparison. I compared my property was compared against investment properties. So these comps had pools, gazebos, main houses, additional cottages. One of them was a 3-unit rental. Okay, so you want to look at your sales comps. You can actually look them up and find all the property data. I also did a Google search on them and looked at the description, and that's how I found out these were investment properties. Okay, I found the actual description, 3-unit rental property, great for Airbnb. Well, that's not a fair comparable comp. I searched and provided my own comps. I compared the evidence that I had presented, my classification code, my living square feet, all of that. And what I did is went to the actual Aransas Appraisal District website. There's a map search. I found that best. You can do property search if you have like, oh, my neighbor, I know what their home is. They have a comparable property size. I don't have the most basic property size. I own almost 1.5 acres in town right off the Business 35-year market. You can't find that land very often. So I went to the map and I started finding comparable land sizes. Then when I found something that was comparable to my own property, I went and looked at the structure in which was on there. Then I compared the structure. When I found a home that was most, directly related to mine based on the characteristics, I went and further searched and used that as a comp. I provided my own comps to them and said, these are fair and consistent comps. So I recommend using the map tool and then compare it to the data of your property. As far as evidence, it's very important when you're showing photos, don't try to highlight the best aspects of your house, okay? This is the time we want to focus on the worst of the worst. It's not about great lighting, you're not wanting to show improvements. No improvements should be highlighted in this protest. You don't want to tell them what you've improved. You want to tell them what needs improvement. As far as your market value, you want to, whether you create these quotes or you already have existing quotes, use those against the market value. You need to completely re-floor a bathroom. Well, guess what? That's gonna need to be done before it's a fair market value, okay? These all go into consideration. So you wanna use anything that needs to be done against your market value. Create a presentation, your binder. This is what I created. It matched the evidence that I had submitted down to a T. My evidence on the screen and my binder completely correlated with one another. So when I started my presentation, mind you, it is timed. So you don't want to waste any time. Very easy to get upset during these, but they really let you speak, guys, and speak freely. So it's your time. I developed my entire presentation to match my outline, and all of the evidence correlated with the photo that was on the screen. So I recommend that. And then just try to remain calm and focused, because it can be a little difficult. So go ahead.
What year did you do your protest?
Last year.
Really?
Mm-hmm. My home went up this year 20,000. I'm still protesting. So, any other questions?
How much time do they allot?
Yeah, I think it's 30 they put on the clock. And they start a clock. I went in front of a one-person panel. I agree to that. But there could be many on the panel. It just depends on the availability.
How do you know what properties they use for their comps?
They provide it in the evidence packet, which you have to request. If you've already submitted your protest, you can still request it, but it does take time you have to allow them time to develop these evidence packets, and then you just can go pick it up.
Let Mike be able to tell them something. You're going to tell them everything they need to know.
You're so awesome.
So it takes time, but our notice of the appraisal was April 26th, and the protest is due by May 26th.
No, and you can request the evidence packet in your protest, but if you've already protested, just call them and give them notice you want an evidence package. And then they need to have time to develop that package for you. You can go pick it up. The comps are going to be in there, both sales as well as equity comps.
So you don't have to have your whole package ready when you protest.
You need to have it before, because that's what you're going to use against them.
You don't need to give it to them, though.
No.
I'll speak to
I
it.
appreciate it.
Okay.
When you say fair comparables, okay, same number of bedrooms, same number of bathrooms?
Livable square feet.
So it's just square footage, so if you're a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house, you get lumped in with a 4-bedroom, 3-bath house if it's the same square footage?
I would use it. I mean, anything that's not comparable, if it's the same exact livable square feet, it's going to be a little bit harder to use as evidence, because that's what they're going to be assessing your property on, is square feet.
Yeah, but we all know that a 4-bedroom house is worth more than a 3-bedroom house.
Correct.
You're looking for a 4-bedroom.
Like I said, I would use it.
Okay.
Anything. I mean, every inconsistency I would list. The more you have, they literally stopped me in the middle of my presentation. I didn't even get all the way through, and they said, okay, you've said enough. And then they gave me the offer of 200 flat. So I didn't even get to go through my entire comps. Any other questions? Go ahead.
So when you say presentation, does that mean we have to do something formal like PowerPoint or something?
Yeah, they'll ask you to send in all your evidence. What I did is ensure that when I developed my evidence, I put it in a consistent order. And I created, and you guys are welcome to look at this. It's, just don't steal it from me because I'm using it again this year. But you're welcome to look at how I formatted my layout and use it as, an example to do your own. But my evidence pictures, or whatever I wanted to present, I put it in the same order that I was going to present for my binder, so that I knew exactly what was coming up and what was I was going to speak on.
Those of us that like to do PowerPoint presentations, you also can. My mom did hers just.
And it wasn't even a PowerPoint. I just uploaded the pictures in a certain order, and I listed it 1, 2. I just listed the numbers in which the order I wanted. I didn't do no power presentation.
But you also can take it directly to the office and they'll.
Yeah, correct. They'll upload it
If
for
they let the technology challenge you, still go for it.
Okay, and one last thing is, she talked about that her property was compared to profit to revenue generating income generating property. How many of us are homesteaded here? Okay, so your property very well could be compared to a short-term rental. Y'all know what I mean by that? It's the word Airbnb. Today, the county treasurer gave me a list of her short-term rentals, all the short-term rentals that she has in the county. So when you guys, when we send you out the information, the presentation from today and all, we'll also include that on with the email. So when your comps come through, you can check against it and see if you're being appraised against revenue generating. Yeah.
Can I ask a question on that? Because I talked with the appraiser recently about that, and they said they can't differentiate between income producing and homestead properties when they're doing the
Okay.
That's what they said.
All right. Okay. So I'm gonna turn it over. Mike's gonna go through. Mike is really the expert on this, and if you guys got questions, he'll be able to let you know.
I'll do my best. Well, thank y'all for having me. It's been a privilege to travel the state of Texas. I've been from the border to Brazos in the last couple of weeks. I've been from El Paso. I'll be in East Texas Thursday. This is a class that continues to evolve. Something I did 6 years ago when I ran for tax collector in Barrett County. I had a bright idea. I thought, well, I thought I was more qualified than a retired fireman who was related to a state senator that I had previously run for office against. I thought, well, CPA, right? You'll come vote for me if I tell you a little bit about your rights. And yes, the good news is I didn't get elected. Right? Otherwise, I'm not going to be here. But the better news is that tax collector is still there. His brother that I previously run against is in prison. So I'm really privileged to be here. I come from Barrett County, where if you put an R by your name, sometimes somehow the votes don't seem to work out that way. But God has a plan, and just to give you a little bit, you can have this contact information. A little bit of my background. My father died when I was 14 years old. I was in a seminary, and I thought, well, maybe I don't know if anybody's Catholic here, and if you are, well, bless you. We thought we had the first class seats, right? But the reality was that I was in the seminary. I thought maybe I had to call him to be a priest, and God had a different plan. He took my father away in sudden death, and so I made a deal with God. I said, if you want me to be a priest, you would let me get a scholarship to Central Catholic, and I got the scholarship. So that's why I'm here now. Not a priest without a collar, but I graduated the dumbest class Central Catholic ever had. And the evidence is this: I graduated for 3 years at the top of the class. So I mean, the bus was so short. We didn't have a bus, And the blessing of that was I got a full scholarship to St. Mary's University. If you haven't heard of that, well, they got a pretty good accounting program. So I've got a degree in accounting, and I got out there in 3 years. Obviously, again, I find the dumb classes, and I got to UTSA, and I got a master's in accounting with a concentration in tax. So I tell you all that to preface why we're here, why I'm here, because there's no sales pitch. Everything we're going to give you, you got it. I'm here for free. It's a privilege to share what I've learned in the 6 years since when I first put on this class, and 3 new people showed up. I didn't get voted in, but it got silly stupid because people were like, "I need to hire you." So I gave it to you for free, but if you want, I'll go down there and I'll observe. So I was observing it. I could have been doing a documentary and watching the abuse, and it got bigger and bigger. And I'm a licensed real estate broker. I'm a CPA, and so what does that mean? Well, it means that I had to learn what I didn't realize would go outside Barrett County. But when COVID hit, the blessing of COVID was I no longer had to go downtown to protest my values. If I didn't have to go downtown San Antonio, I don't have to go downtown El Paso. I don't have to go downtown Fort A. I go wherever that computer will take me. So I'm the only geek I know of that's tri-licensed as a CPA, as a real estate broker, and as a senior property tax consultant. If I was Lieutenant Governor Patrick, I'd say, I want your values to go up. I just don't want the taxes to go up with them. I've heard that at a real estate convention. And I've had the privilege of working with legislators. We're not going to get off too far into the politics, but I'll finish with it. Okay, fair enough? So I'm licensed as a senior property tax consultant. Believe it or not, my mother had great genes, died at 99, and I'm 63. So I don't know if that's probably even the senior license, but that's the license I hold because I can hold somebody else's license. If you want to be a property tax consultant, like being an agent, you have to be a broker to hold someone's license. So that's my background. But I appreciate we started in prayer. I'm president of the Christian Chamber of Texas by way of San Antonio. And I like to begin all these seminars with the fact that we have scriptural authority for what we're going to talk about. Jesus said, pay to Caesar what is Caesar's, God what is God. The governor's not Caesar, right? And ultimately this money affects what the state does at the state level. So, but if it doesn't move you to have the Word of God, relax. I've done this in mosques. I don't care if you're agnostic, atheist, Jewish, it doesn't matter. The one concept that's going to pull us all together is this Texas Taxpayer Bill of Rights behind it. It says that you have the right to contest a decision. It says some other things, but that's the one we're here to talk about. You have the right to contest a decision. And so I want you to know your rights. So today we're going to cover, hopefully quickly, we've already covered a lot. It's going to make it easier for me to move through my presentation by way of example. But many of you, have a right to exemptions. You need to revisit that right just to make sure that, that they kept the homestead exemption in place. Or for your friends or family that you're going to impact that may not realize that they're better off perhaps putting their homestead exemption on this home, not their home back in some other town. So many of you are going to go out and you're going to benefit people other than yourself. You have the right to protest your value. We're going to cover what I call the county appraisal district evidence. You can substitute A for B. Doesn't matter if you're from Bexar County or Aransas. You have the right to that evidence. Specifically, you have that right to that evidence 14 days prior to the formal ARB hearing. This is state law. You also have the right to reschedule an ARB hearing if you just want to reschedule it. You don't have to have, dog has a headache, of having a bad hair day. No, you don't need a clause. You have the right. You also have the right to an informal hearing. That's just a conversation. Like you heard already. You can have a conversation. They call it a hearing. It's not recorded. So I consider it a warm-up. Give me your evidence. Tell me how you came up with the number. And if I don't bring anything, they're still welcome to make a correction. But if you bring something and then you learn, I could have done that a little better. Well, fine. Now we come back. We know what they're going to say. So when we go to the formal, we're ready, right? We know what they're going to say. In fact, I'm going to tell you why that's so important, because you're going to let them go first in the formal hearing. And then you're going to go second. And then they're going to rebut. And then you're going to have the final word in an effort to convince the jury of your peers, and we're going to have some fun with that. I think there's somebody here from the Appraisal Review Board, is that correct? Show hand?
No, we don't have any. We have one appraisal district director. We had the chair woman. She had to go pick up her child.
Not a problem. So you've got the right to the evidence, the right to an informal, the right to reschedule the ARB hearing, the right to the evidence 14 days prior to the hearing, and if all of this local prejudice overwhelms you, then guess what? You have the right to appeal by arbitration. I mean, I currently am working 15 arbitrations from last year. And it doesn't require being a lawyer. It doesn't require me. The form to file for arbitration is about as difficult as the form I'm going to go through for the county to get in line for the protest. And you have 60 days after the formal hearing to make that decision. So you don't have to make a decision in front of the panel. So I love this quote: tax avoidance is not tax evasion. Right? I'm not here to teach you fraud. I'm not here to teach you how to lie. But I'm here to tell you what the chief appraiser of Bexar County and what many other people around the state have helped me learn. So why doesn't everybody do it? Why doesn't everybody do it? I don't know what the statistics are here, but I will bet it's somewhere between 20 to 25% at most have been protesting their value. And it's probably lower. It's probably lower. So I'm giving you the high numbers of the few counties that have gotten into that record. In Bexar County, we went from 120,000 protests to 150 to then 180,000 in the last 3 years. And if I have anything to do with it, we're going to bust 200,000 because I've been working real hard to tell everybody. But these are some of the reasons, right? You were too busy. You were too angry. You did it before. You left irritated. You felt disrespected. you had some realtor, and I'm a licensed real estate broker, so I have no disrespect if you're a realtor and you didn't know this, but today now you do. Just because we lower the value for the government purposes as of January 1st, that's the effective date, doesn't mean you can't go sell it this summer for twice the price, or whatever price you can get. We're going to be talking about January 1st. Some of you didn't know your rights, so you didn't feel comfortable doing it. Some of you just weren't prepared. But this is the biggest reason that I get by it. You just haven't listened to me, because I'm going to hopefully give you the inspiration to do it, even if you decide to withdraw. This is a no-lose proposition. So what's the calendar? The calendar is this. Right there at the lower end, January 1st is the effective date. This is probably a better illustration. The county, since about October, has been out driving the streets. At least they'd like us to think that. They've been flying it by drone. None of them have knocked on your door, and if they have, you didn't have the obligation to let them in to check out your granite or whatever you had as a countertop. But since January 1st, they finally got to that day in April when they sent us all a love letter, right? You got the love letter, it looks like this, the one that we typically ignore because it says something like, this is not a tax statement, don't pay this, we just want you to know, feel good about your property. Well, May 26th, if I understand correctly, and I apologize if I'm like I say, every night's a new calendar.
You're correct.
May 26th is the CAD deadline, and we're going to have to get the email address. And I want to speak to that because I was blessed to read a locals, and I'll pick on Ronald, but he let me look at this information regarding electronic protests. Now, I don't see any one-eyed monsters in this room. And if I'm going to make an argument, I'd like them to at least hear my voice, right? I'd like them to see to hear you. It's hard to turn somebody down person to person. It's easy just to reject your data. But this whole form is designed. It's not unique to your county. It's all designed to say get into the portal. And sometimes you get into the portal. Some of you are a little younger than me. You're like, oh, this is so cool. I just love getting on the computer. I'm going to do it by portal. And then the first thing they ask is, well, what do you think your value is? They're already asking you to negotiate against yourself. I mean, you've been charged with a crime, and now they want you to give yourself up, right? I mean, that's what it is. You got a crime. You committed a crime because you own the property, and they think it went up in value. So I don't encourage you to e-file. That's just me. Now, email, save a stamp. Call the county. What email address can I take a copy of this, not the front, just the back. They made it real easy. You just flip it over, you fill it in, we'll go through it, and you send it to them. Save yourself a stamp. Not, if you're like Kimberly, she likes to go down there. She knows that she's so welcome. So she goes down there and she delivers it. She gets a date stamp to know that she got it. So email your protest. Don't e-file it. Because I think person to person, whether it's by phone or by Zoom, as I said, it changed my life. I've done hearings in a Starbucks parking lot for a property in Matagorda on behalf of an owner in Fort Bend in front of the arbitrator in Houston. The Matagorda people didn't care, neither will the people here, right?
That's the address.
aransascad@gmail.com. That's the address. aransascad@gmail.com. So scan it, send it. Now you've got a date stamp. You're in. You're good till midnight on the 26th. Okay? So let's get back to January 1st. I know you don't know anything about catastrophes, but remember Houston had the same problem a few years ago with floods. And those people's floods came in the spring. And what did the county at the time say? Well, I'm so sorry. Your house was standing on January 1st. I'm sorry you're living in a hotel. But guess what? What was the effective date? January 1st. Well, thankfully we've survived this last Christmas and New Year's. But if the house had burned down January 1st, what would we be talking about? Land and slab. So everything that you've done to your home since January 1st is up for grabs. Everything that you still need to do to your home since January 1st is up for grabs. Meaning it's up for you to bring that to their attention. So the effective date is January 1st. This is one that I don't think I even saw coming. And I'm a real estate broker. But they're going to give you comps this year, unlike ever before, and they're going to suggest to you that perhaps a sale that took place a year ago, January, or February, or March. Can anybody tell me what interest rates were going on? Because if you can't, there it is. Last year, during the spring, rates were below 4%. So you're going to tell me that the demand wasn't greater than ever when, by the January 1st of 2023, the interest rates went above 6% or higher. So if interest rates were 2 to 3 times as much, the auction environment we're in is kind of cool. Now, we're negotiating again. It's good old days. And so I don't know what your evidence package is going to look like, but I'd look for it. And I'd raise them. I'd give them a little bit of grief. I'd push back on comps that are from the spring, unless the comps help you. Okay? If I was the chief appraiser in Bear County, he would tell you, don't help me do my job. Now, this man's done this for 20 years. He's retiring. He's got 16 offers from outside entities. He doesn't want to have anything more to do with this anymore. So this tells you, from somebody who is part of the system, he's done with the system. And he's worked with every senator and every rep you can think of to say, this is the reality of what business you've given him. Now, you can file that protest, you can request that evidence, but we start with the notice of value, and we start with the fact that you got this love letter that I call not a protest, not a tax statement, do not pay notice. It looks something like this. Y'all looks very familiar to ours. 5 times, because we're just so uneducated in Bear County, they need to tell us, don't do anything with it. So sometimes that causes us to forget that the next page, and this is Bear County's page, says, but if you want to protest, you just flip it over. It says notice of protest. In Bear County, we're not only so uneducated, we need to be told 5 times, we're also so friendly that we actually put it in writing. Don't forget to check the box to request our evidence. Now, I guess that's the one place where your county is not as friendly. So, what do? We write it down. We just write, please provide the evidence. So I've done that right here, where it says section 4, where they're asking you to provide facts that may help. You say not at this time. Thank you very much. I think I'll wait. But please provide ACAT evidence. Now you've met the requirement of the law. You've given them a written request. That's all you have to do. So let's back it up a second, because you're, on section 1, they can ask you, are you 65 or over, disabled vet, less than any of the veterans in this room. Check the boxes that apply. Much of this is already pre-filled, except your email address, and you may want to use the email address or your phone to continue the relationship, communicating more efficiently. In property description, they've already got that there too. So let's move on to section 3. What's your reason for protest? The first box. We don't agree with the value. But if you're thinking maybe there's something else, well, check the box that says other. It's like writing a blank check on your behalf that says, if I come up with another reason, I've already covered it. Then you go into the hearing and they say, well, what else are you here to talk about? Oh, Mike told me to do that. I'm just here to talk about the value. Okay? But there's other boxes. You might want to check exemption was denied, modified, or canceled if that was applicable. But check the box for value, check the box for other, and now you've got yourself an open window. Go on to section 4. Again, they ask for the evidence, and you put not at this time. Please provide county appraisal district evidence. As if that wasn't insulting enough, they go on to ask you, what do you think your value is? But if you have had LASIK, or if you have a magnifying glass, you can see that it says optional. Don't provide them an opinion. You're under no obligation. You don't score points with them by putting limits on God's humor. So you go to the next one, section 5. It says, do you request an informal conference with the appraisal office before the protest hearing? Yes. You don't have to go, but they're offering an opportunity for you to visit with them. You get to practice on them. You get to listen to them. You get them to make a note to the file as they make you an offer, and then we just see if we can improve on that at the formal. You request a single-member ARV panel or a regular panel of at least 3 members. I prefer the regular panel. I will show you why, but that's my bias. It may not be everybody's bias. And then it goes on to ask, a property owner does not waive the right to appear in person at a protest hearing by submitting an affidavit. Okay? I intend to appear in the ARB hearing scheduled for my protest in the following manner. Now, some of you may have the time, you may not mind going down there, being there in person. You may enjoy that personal interaction. I certainly enjoy being here with you. But if you don't have the time, if you want to be more efficient with your time, you're welcome to do it by phone. If you're afraid of the word Zoom, you're welcome to do it by Zoom. And that may bring you an efficiency that might cause you to not have an excuse not to do it. Because you don't have to go down there. If you go down there, they have to start the hearing within 2 hours. After 2 hours, say, listen, I gotta go. Give me another date, I'll come back. So don't get hung up in getting frustrated that you're there for 3 hours and then you're so angry you don't make a good presentation of yourself. So the hearing type is certainly personal. And then go on to the section A or B hearing, and it asks again, I request my notice of hearing be delivered to, and that's a preference. I prefer email these days. Save a stamp, you've got a date stamp. Last but not least, it's just check the box, print and sign your name. So why is it that the county possibly made mistakes? I don't have the numbers for your county, but I believe this is pretty much representative of the rural counties and possibly the coastal counties. In Wilson County, they have 8 total appraisers to do 40,000 accounts. Now, I don't know about you, but is there anything you've done 5,000 times since January 1st before they gave you the notice of them breathe? And so in Bear County, it's actually 10,000 accounts. Now, I know with God all things are possible. A great tax collector taught us that. But it's not probable that if you did anything 5,000 times that you might make a mistake. So get the number. It doesn't matter whether it's 4,000 or 5,000 or 6,000. They've got a lot of work. So how do they do it? They use mass appraisal. We're not talking about Catholic mass. We're saying mass appraisal. We're just going to throw it out there, and this is the specific language. They're going to use standard methodology, employing common data, allowing for statistical data. I mean, that's a lot of multi-syllabic words. I know that you already impressed you with my academic timely excellence. I don't know what that means, but it means that there's a good chance they made a mistake, and that's what we've already spoken to with one example. So what does that mean for us? That means we have 4 times the argument. Because we're basically doing our own fee-based appraisal. When we bought our homes, if we used a mortgage, we had a lender who sent an appraiser, who walked in the door, who checked out what was going on in the inside. Not any one of your cases is that going on. I know you'll hear some war stories, but that's not really their goal. They don't have the resources. So there may be maintenance issues. There may be function issues. We heard about 2-bedroom versus 4-bedroom. We talk about location issues, right? Am I on the corner? Am I in the best neighborhood? Am I next to a mosquito farm? Am I next to something, anything? So these ARB panels can make adjustments if the informal hearing doesn't make sufficient adjustments. So we've talked about the evidence package. You're going to request that evidence package. You're going to ask for a reschedule. So you have at least 14 days to get ready so that you can review the evidence. And you're going to go to an informal hearing so you can get a little practice session. The evidence package is going to have 3 things. It's going to have a description of your property. We've given an example where there was a lot of mistakes. They didn't get the specs right. But they're also going to give you equity values. And those equity values, as I said, if 75% of your neighbors are not protesting, I really won't dignify comment if my neighbors' values are somehow higher. Even if they're all homesteads, if they didn't protest, that's like saying, 75% of your neighbors get drunk. Are you drunk? No. I've got a lively neighborhood, but I don't get drunk, so don't accuse me of driving while intoxicated. Maybe a little tipsy, but I wasn't intoxicated. So what do we move on to? The sales comps. Now we already have an argument for why the first half of 2022 sales might have been a little exaggerated. We have this hybrid of a market, homesteads versus VRBOs, right? So we've got a little bit of a fight on our hand. We're going to work through that. But when you go to this informal hearing, the temptation is to be treated like Bonnie Hall, let's make a deal, right? Remember that for some of you that are old enough? Where, hey, I'll give you this if you won't go to the panel. No, let's make a note that you offered me that, and let me see if I can improve on that. Let me see if I can go find more evidence. Let me see if I can find more pictures. Let me see if I can find more costs. Let me see if I can find more estimates. You have that right to build on your evidence, but they're not going to add more to their evidence. Once they've given it to you, that's it. They're stuck. Okay? So recognize you might be dealing, depending on the size of the staff, with some of the least experienced people. Like buying a car from a salesman who doesn't even know the general manager's name. Right? Have you ever done that? You go in and, can I get you into this car? And there's a little bit of pressure. You're like, let me get to the general manager. I'm ready to make a deal, but I'm going to need a little bit of help. And it's not going to come from you. So the same thing goes for this process of working through the informal. Now, you don't have to go to the informal, but I just recommend it as being a good practice session. No obligation. In Bexar County, if Mike Amasquita was standing next to me, the chief appraiser, he would tell you 85 to 94% of their cases are settled at informal. And I said, I must be representing the other 6 to 15%, because I never settle at informal. I just think it's entertaining. I don't even care if I'm not even ready. Hey, let's sit down. How you doing? How long have you been working here? Treat them like real people. Treat them like you would your brother or sister. You know. But this is what the ARB looks like to me. Okay? And you're going to say, well, Mike, you were doing all right. You just sounded like you weren't too full of yourself. So I said, well, why did you come up with that? Because I took a day of my life and $50 that I'll never get back so I could take the training. Okay? And so I need some help. And I think Ronald, I think Kimberly, you need to do this. This is too much fun. So I took this course, and I thought to myself, what am I doing here? I mean, I got all these licenses, and it didn't take long before I got to page 2, where it said do's and don'ts. And I'm going to ask you, Kimberly, read to me what they're told in writing not to do on the 4th.
Don't let your attention wander. And don't sleep during the hearing.
It's in writing. I mean, this is from the comptroller's office. So now you know, hopefully you'll burn this into your image, that if that comptroller said in writing, as I was being trained to be one of those panel members, do not fall asleep. What have you done in your life where that was part of the training? When you got your driver's license at 16, somebody said, and don't fall asleep? I mean, seriously. I mean, these people don't suffer from narcolepsy. I mean, that's not the issue. The issue is they are not real estate experts. Are we clear on that? They are not real estate experts. They're a jury of your peers that have been elevated to being a judge and a jury at the same time. You're going in front of an assistant DA that's charging you with a crime, and now we're in front of a jury. But fortunately, there's an appellate process. That doesn't mean that you're not going to succeed in front of the jury because they're falling asleep. Because we know that even if they're falling asleep, even if they're not real estate experts, even if they're not appraisers or commercial real estate broker, is that correct? Yes. So even if they don't have that kind of academic background, we know two things about people who can fall out of the mirror. They either were born to feel first or think first. English-speaking population tells us we're all evenly divided. Occupationally, the reds would be what? Salesmen. Right? Yellow would be receptionists. Still very pleasant, still meet you halfway, still have that charisma. But, you know, when they're going to introduce you to a lawyer or a heart surgeon, you know, they don't need to close the deal. They're just there to kind of... So we have high feelers and low feelers. We have high thinkers and low thinkers. High thinkers are like surgeons. You don't really need them to sell you on anything. You just need to make sure their hands are steady. And if they rip your chest open, then maybe they'll put a good heart in. If you're looking for good hearts, I would suggest you find a revenue officer from the IRS. Generally speaking, they have not used their heart. Okay? And I can say that because I'm a blue. I'm an accountant. And accountants, I mean, I'm 63. It took me a while to learn how to look you in the eye, you know, and instead of looking you in the shoe or in your belt buckle. That's what the extroverts do. So if we're evenly divided between high thinkers and low thinkers, high feelers and low feelers, are you two together? No? I don't know, he's looking at you. Okay, who's the other? We got a couple? We got this couple. Y'all are together, right? So who's the feeler in the two? You're the feeler. So when he chased you, right? He was chasing you, know it, and you were making it like, hey, you catch me, you're going to be blessed for the rest of your life, right? I mean, life was never going to be the same if he got you. Right? But without him as a thinker, you might be in jail. No, I'm teasing. But opposites attract, but likes endure. But if the two of you are with this gentleman, there's a good chance that, I don't know, he's kind of, entertaining. So maybe I got two feelers and one thinker, or maybe you got two thinkers. He wasn't thinking too quickly. I mean, he moved so quickly, he signed his email address. So my point being is, we're going to go in front of an audience of feelers and thinkers. So you can't walk away from this, and I know it's being taped. I didn't say your appraisal review board are the Three Stooges. I'm making the point that they're feelers and thinkers. So that's why I prefer, and it may not be your preference, to go in front of a 3, 4, 5-member panel. Because why? Because if you remember nothing else about messaging, watch me. Inform with facts, right? Entertain with images. And if you do those two things, you have a better chance of inspiring empathy from whoever your listening audience is, whatever it is you're doing. I don't care what you're selling cars, I don't care if you're selling Girl Scout cookies. You're selling your case. Now we had a fine nurse who's very precise and very specific that gave her story. And when she's on the job, she doesn't get it right, somebody dies. So she was it's easy for her to be precise, because that's her nature. But for those of you that maybe need to step it up a little bit, I'm going to suggest to you that you can also be very entertaining. If you don't have that sense of precision every day with putting together data, you can make sure that you put together some images. So at this point in the presentation, I'm going to rush a little bit because I'm going to catch up thanks to what's already gone before me. But Mr. Cifuentes, sitting in your chair in Bear County, said, I think I got it. I think this is what he's talking about. And although she's volunteered to let you look at her, you're going to get this also as part of the package. He put together a summary. He said, is this what you're talking about, Mike? I mean, I think I need to paint my home. I think I need to fix the windows. I think I need to fix the flooring. And what about the green belt? What about the mosquito farm that's next to me? What about the odd-shaped lot? Well, some of you may know of a congressman named Trey Gowdy who wrote a great book. And I encourage you to read it. It's a real simple book. It says, doesn't hurt to ask. Because he's never met a question that wasn't worth asking versus making a statement and leaving no doubt that you don't know what you're talking about. But if you ask a question, what are you doing by saying, well, I don't know, should I be giving some consideration for my steep driveway in this case, or the 0-degree incline that everybody else has? And then what does he do? He immediately goes into pictures. Yeah, look, I need to be painted, so here's a picture. Not that we don't know what painting means, but you're reaching those people on the panel that are falling asleep. They're listening to arguments every 15 minutes. I'm told 30 minutes. But in most of the counties I go to, they've got this down to 15 minutes. And they will tell you. The panel's got, you've got 5 minutes, they've got 5 minutes, and then we're going to go through rebuttal. And then we get you in and out of there. It's drive-through justice. So then he says, here's a paint estimate. And don't go getting your lowest paint bid, your friendliest contractor, because you're going to provide the material and they're going to provide the labor. Now's not the time to give them the lowest estimate. Stay within the high end. Oh, get rid of those windows. Oh, look, some of the windows need some fixing. Oh, here's the estimate. Here's the flooring. Because he doesn't know how to use the concentrate in the dishwasher, he caused some harm to the floor. And he had to change out his shag carpet for a while. There's the estimate. You see the flow, it's not about the details. It's about the style in which you present yourself. So we're kind of double talking what we've already said, but I just wanted to know that this logic follows from just human nature. Now we've got them nodding. Some of y'all are even nodding. Yeah, I get it, yeah. So now I've got you kind of thinking, yeah. Well, so I'm on a roll. Now let's talk about the area. This gentleman backs up to a vacant lot. It's a commercial lot. And if I was a criminal, I would get on 281, I would go across the vacant lot and go in his backyard, and I'd steal. I'm not a criminal. But if I was, that would be the way to get there. So what looks like a quiet lot on a cul-de-sac is really the lot that's at risk to the commercial property that's vacant, that's convenient to the way to get out of the town as fast as possible. Then there's some more evidence that, yeah, maybe he hasn't kept up with his fencing or his flat work. Now, the county may suddenly say, you know what, we don't make adjustments to that. And they'll say these things in front of the panel. I'm saying, well, I don't understand. I'm a real estate broker. I would tell you to fix that. In fact, if you need some help, ask a real estate broker for a seller's disclosure statement. If you went to sell it, here's the seller's disclosure statement. Would you fill this out? And then, oh, and by the way, I would fix this and this and this and this. Well, that's the mindset we need to put on. We're not market ready. Anybody buy a new car this afternoon? Anybody? I'm waiting. This will be the first. So if nobody bought a new car this afternoon, I see some really nice cars out there, but I'll bet if you wanted to trade it in, you probably would be best advised to get it tuned up, cleaned up, and detailed. Well, that's where your house is not. Your house is a used or experienced house. But they're comparing it to homes that, with the help of somebody like myself, has made it ready to the top of the market, whether it's before or after the interest rates went up. And then on top of all that, Mr. Cifuentes has a rectangle shoved into a pie-shaped lot. Now, the good news is, maybe he can have his barbecue here, maybe he can have his children playing there, and maybe they're protected by a buffer of landscaping. But we're not going to tell them that. We're going to tell them we got excess land, and it's just a burden. I mean, you get to the point where you're going to have a hard time finding a comp like that, Mr. County. And the burden of proof is on the government. That's the state law. You're not made to feel it with it. And then finally, throw in some humor. Look, Mom, no hands, no rails. I mean, look, he's the last person out of his home during Snowville. Everybody has something peculiar, and you want to tell it in a way that's kind of funny. Whatever it is. I was over Portland, and the man from the second floor, he's got a view of the bay. But at ground level, his view is blocked. So he's not going to brag about the second floor view. Does that make sense? Especially when they're comparing you to somebody with maybe a better view, better location. In this case, somebody can just get in and out of his garage without having to scale steps or wait for the ice to melt. So at this point, some of you are saying, well, what about this? What about that? What about it? Whether it's honeydews or honeydids. I mean, in Atascosa County, the chief appraiser's personal favorite was plumbing, because she made an insurance claim that her PVC had become obsolete and they had to rip it all out. So if I was in Atascosa, I'm hoping that I got a plumbing problem, because they'll be sympathetic to that. But all your recommendations are welcome. Share them amongst yourselves. Form a Facebook group if we haven't already. The Aransas County Taxpayers Association. And then let's tell each other our stories. That's how we come together. Because it doesn't hurt to ask, well, what's working for you? What about this? But people like to be pleasant. Don't go first. I've already told you my reasoning. Don't attack the appraiser. It's not personal. Don't accept the appraiser's offer at the formal. Be prepared to present your facts. If you play golf, you commit to the process. You don't go out there telling people, I'm going to shoot the low, right? I'm going to commit to the process and play one shot at a time, and that's how I'm going to get to my best score ever. Keep your peace. So, last but not least, we have the right to appeal through arbitration. And arbitration, I'm the Pied Piper. In Montgomery County last year, they went from 60,000 protests to 90,000 protests. That's a 50% increase in 1 year. The arbitrations went from 200 to 600. Proportionally, that makes no sense. But what it makes sense is people were learning about the right to arbitration. It didn't require a lawyer. It didn't require a lawsuit. And you don't have to make that decision until after you receive your ruling from the county and had within 60 days, made that decision. If you don't do anything, then the ruling stands. But if you want to pursue it, I'll come back in the summer, because we don't have to make that decision today. But know you have that right. Now, why is arbitration not arbitrary? Because I took this course to learn what it took to be on the panel. I took another course, and I don't have the book with me, was this thick. Plus, I had to be either a lawyer, a CPA, a realtor, or an appraiser, or I could not be an arbitrator on the registry of the comptroller, for which there's only about 200. That doesn't work for the government. In fact, doesn't even have to reside in this county. In fact, you can actually make a request that you want the arbitrator to be from somewhere other than this county. So, would you rather hear somebody from Beaumont or Dallas or anywhere than somebody who says, well, on the salary I have, you should be just thankful that you're retired and you have all this. That's got to go. I don't need any local prejudice working against me. So let's go back to Mr. Cifuentes. He was at $320,000 when he walked in. The appraiser in front of the panel says, after looking at the facts, I'll offer him $300,000. And I was behind the computer. I wasn't in front. I wasn't making the case. I said, like a third base coach, I made all the gestures. And he did the smartest thing, again, that he probably ever did in his life. He turned and he looked at his wife. I mean, that was pretty smart. He didn't understand this. So he looks at her, she looks at him, she looks at me, and then he figured it out. Like, no, don't accept it. So he didn't accept it. Why was that so important? Because if he had accepted the informal the appraiser's offer, then we're done. We'll close the case. It's been fun playing the game. But he said no. And so then the panel says, well, then this hearing is closed. And before that, they said, do you have anything else to say? He said, well, yes, I appreciate the offer for $300,000. However, I'd like them to give more consideration to fill in the blank. Whatever your best beef is, that you really feel like they really aren't giving me sympathy for that. So then they closed the panel. They ruled it $290,000. We were done. I'm closing the computer. Mr. Cifuentes, wow, what else can we do? I'm like, oh my gosh, I've created a monster. Do you want to do this? Do you want to keep playing this game? Well, we can play the game. Let's make a request for arbitration, but now you have to give them a value. Now you have to give them a value. He says, well, what about 240? I said, what about 240? Let me explain this to you. At 240, as you'll see in the numbers behind me, the midpoint, for those of you that are struggling with math, is 265. What is the panel rule? 290. What are you asking for? 240. The midpoint is 265. If you get past that midpoint, if the arbitrator rules in your favor, 264, 999, that means you won. You didn't get everything you asked for, but that means the county has to pay for the arbitrator. Wow, this is the first time the county has skin in the game other than a little bit of time from their staff. Because you're going to put up $450 if it's your homestead under $500,000, $500 if it's over $500,000 to play the game. Kimberly and I are playing the game. She called me on the 60th day, right? Like 59th day in the 24th hour. She was using some flight words for our mutual friend who's an attorney. And I said, Kimberly, call him, because I don't think you got it when you think you got it. And then she called down and they verified it. No, ma'am, you received the ruling on this day. So we looked at the calendar, we counted the 60 days. I said, Kimberly, finish filling out the form, deliver it with a cashier's check, and she went over there and she's in the game. We're waiting. Actually, I think we finally got it. The comptroller finally worked through it, and we're going to be heard. We're going to get to be heard by an arbitrator. So what did Mr. Cifuentes do? He got it down another $30,000. He doubled his savings because he went to arbitration. And he won. The fee was paid by the county. Congratulations. Why? Because you are like a victim of a crime. But usually, people who are victims of crimes are what? They're dead. That one eyewitness is no longer there. But you're still alive. So you can make a clear and convincing case that's relevant and reliable. We're not talking about biting. We're not talking about, whatever our grief is, the bad Mexican food we had today or something. You're the qualified witness. And you follow the advice that you heard in the case before you that's local. You follow this empirical advice that works all across the state. And that's what Mr. Cifuentes looks like. Does he look intimidating? Does he look like he got dressed up to go to No. He's you. He's everybody. I didn't do anything other than teach him what I taught y'all what you're going to have. And if he can double his savings by going to arbitration, I'm not saying you need to do that. But I don't want Kimberly dying at a young age because her blood pressure is about to go through the roof. And I don't want her taking out my friend, the attorney, because, you know, he wasn't on top of it, giving her my name sooner. You know, so we lowered her blood pressure, she went and had a glass of wine, and she knew that she was still in the game, because she just wasn't satisfied. And I hope she doesn't mind me picking on her. So here's Mr. Cifuentes. He was at 290 with the ruling. Notice his values had been at 302, 307, 310, and he decided finally to protest. So he comes to the seminar and he protests and gets it down to 290, which would have limited the value increase to 319 because it was his homestead. This can only go up 10%. That doesn't mean the value, according to the county, can't go higher, but it can only go up 10% for tax purposes. But because he lowered it to 260, look, he lowered the amount that it could go the next year. So then he not only saved money that year, he saved money the following year. Because the county, in its infinite, vast appraisal wisdom, said that his property was now worth $361. They didn't come out to the property. They didn't make sure that all those repairs have been made. So hopefully, this gives you some encouragement, because the burden of proof is on the government. These land value increases are not supported by individual land values. For those of you that are being told, well, the values of the land, I'm going to get on that and then I'm going to close. Because unless they can show me a vacant lot that they sold for a price, how do they suddenly reevaluate your land when it's attached to a structure? Is it the same size? Is it the same shape? Does it have the same slope? The same flooding conditions? Is it located in the same place? They don't have that data. Push back. Some of you look like this. You filed for your exemptions. Some of you said, do I have to protest? Yes, it's like deer season. You're the deer, right? And the government's on the hunt. But when you receive and review your evidence, you might be a little puckered. Yes, ma'am?
Can you go back one slide? Okay.
So some of you look like this at the informal hearing. At least that's what I want you to look like. Thank you very much. Put your hand up. I need to check with my significant other before I can agree to it. Find an excuse to get out of it. You got to check with Mike. You got to check with Jeff. You got to check with Kimberly. Just get out of there. Don't feel like it's a conflict and we got to make a deal and I felt uncomfortable and I caved into the pressure. But when you go to the formal hearing, now you won't look like that. You won't be so angry when you walk away. You'll maybe have a sense of, what? Zen. Because you now know you've got one more chance. Especially if you don't wait till the 60th day like Kimberly did. This is Mike Amasquita. He's the chief appraiser. This is me. We just came out of there with the taxpayer. You notice he's not smiling, even though he's got the fur. That's not what's covering his smile. He doesn't have a smile. He's angry. His value went from $3.3 million to $3.1 million on a commercial property. And so he's angry. I'm laughing because I'm like, they don't know commercial property. They don't know, they can't find a funeral home to compare with a funeral home. They can't find an RV park to compare with an RV park. They can't find a snake farm to compare with a snake farm. These are all my clients. So I'm telling you from specific to commercial property, everybody here, if we do this again, please get everybody from the Chamber of Commerce here. Let's get them to raise a little bit of grief too. When he was finished, at the next appeals process, they dropped the number from 3.1 to 1.7 million. Because he just pushed a little bit further. He didn't care. This is the guy I'm telling you about. That's the chief appraiser. He's got the same salary. They're not incentivized. So we know how to file our arbitration request. We do it within 60 days. I'm not going to spend too much time on that. Just know you have the right. The cost could be $450 if your homestead's under $500, $500 if it's more than $500. So on and so forth if we get to commercial properties. So if you have any friends with commercial properties, you know, I've found cases where I went from Ryan and Company. I'm going to speak to the competition if you perceive that I'm competing with anybody. I really don't care. So this is the biggest property tax company in the world.